Hi 111. In this video I'm going to work you through one page of the graphing calculator activity that we started out with on the first day of the term. So I'm going to work through page 2 in this video, and then in the other couple videos I'll work through the other pages. So in this page where I'm going to work out how to calculate these evaluation requests here for these arithmetic operations here. So let's start out with the first one. So in order to enter this into the calculator here, I need to be really careful and make sure that I'm entering an entire numerator divided by an entire denominator. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to say group the whole numerator. I need to use some parentheses. Okay, so I'm going to say parenthesis, and then I'm going to type in the numerator 1 plus 0.73205. Close the parenthesis to say that's the entire numerator, and then divide by the entire denominator. That's going to need parentheses too, so that's 1 minus 0.73205. Okay, and then I close the parentheses. Okay, so again, if you need to, remember you can pause these videos if you'd like to pause at this point to see exactly how I typed that command into our calculator. Okay, so now that I have that entered, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and I'm going to get my answer of 6.4640 blah 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 blah. And if we check our answers here, we'll notice that that's exactly the same answer as given on the worksheet, which is good. So that's the first one. That one's not too difficult. Let's try the next one, right? That might require a little bit more work. So I'm going to clear out my calculator here. So I have to do the same thing here, sort of, but I have to make sure that I group things carefully. And remember that you can use parentheses as much as you want, right? So if you feel like you might need a set, you can go ahead and use a set of parentheses, okay? So let's again say parenthesis for the whole numerator, 3.33. Plus, now let's see, what could I do here? If you want to use another set of parentheses to imply this fraction, you can. Let's just do it just to be safe. Plus, I want to do a whole, let's see, 1.98 divided by 0.74. I'm going to close that parenthesis to say close that little fraction right there. I need another parenthesis to close off the numerator, right? So that second parenthesis is to close off the numerator. And now I have to say divide by. And now let's start typing in the denominator. Open a parenthesis to say I'm going to enter an entire denominator. So 4 plus, and if you want to, let's use another set of parentheses just to be sure that that whole fraction is interpreted as a fraction in the bottom. 6.25, oops, 25, divided by 3.15. Close the parenthesis for the little fraction in the bottom, close the denominator fraction, and again, if you need to see that more slowly, remember, back up or pause and hit enter now. And that's the same as the answer given on the sheet. Good. And so let's go ahead and try the last one. So let's clear this out. We'll clear our key presses here. All right, so this last one here, there is a cube root command in your calculator, but I mean, this didn't have to be a cube root, and your calculator doesn't have a special command for like a fifth root or anything like that. So finding the special cube root button may not be exceptionally useful, but remember we can interpret that cube root as a 1/3 power, okay? So let's go ahead and say I want to apply a 1/3 power to everything happening inside. I'm going to have to use parentheses for that. So let's open parentheses to say I'm going to apply a power to everything, right? What I'm really doing when I say that is I want to write something like this. I want to interpret number 3 as 27.2 plus 59 squared over negative 16.739, and I want to raise all of that stuff to a power, to the 1/3, right? Okay, so I have to say parentheses to raise stuff to a power. So that's what I'm doing with that parenthesis right there. So now I need to have another parenthesis here for the numerator right here inside of this fraction. I need to have another parenthesis to imply numerator. So now I can start entering the numerator, 27.2 plus 59, and there's a squared button, squared. Close the parenthesis to indicate the numerator, and now I can divide by a number, negative 16.739. I don't need parentheses for that denominator because the denominator is only one thing, right? There's only one term down there. Okay? So I don't have to close parentheses for the bottom, but I do need to close parentheses for the entire inside expression in here so that I can now say let's raise it to a 1/3 power. Well, how do I raise something? I use this little caret right here, right? So I use a little caret. And if you need my key press history, let me lower it for you. There we go. So I use the little caret here so that I can say I'm going to raise something to a power. Now, in order to write a power of 1/3, I can't just type in like this. I can't do this. Okay, because my calculator is not going to interpret that as all of that 1/3 is the power. It's just going to see raise it to the first and then divide that whole answer by 3, right? So that's not going to work here. So I have to get rid of all that stuff. Okay, again, you need my key presses. There we go. So I'm going to raise it to parentheses 1/3, right? Close. Let me lower this down for you. There we go. So now that interprets that entire power as a 1/3 power. And now I can hit enter. And now you see that that matches our answer for number 3, which is good. Excellent. So now in this last one, in number 4 here, in number 4, what we're doing here is making use of the store button to tell our calculator to let values for to store values into letters, right? Into A, B, and C here, right? So that makes use of this store button right here above the on button, okay? So what the idea is here is to tell our calculator to save these values into letters, and then instead of typing in numbers, we can just type in letters, okay? And this we won't make use of exceptionally in 111, but maybe in some applications we might or something, but we can again go over this at another time if we need it, right? So the idea here is that I want to say put a number into A. So what I first do is I type in the number I want to store, and I want to store it into what? I want to store it into A, right? So notice, how do I get an A? It's green here above the math button. So I hit the alpha key and math to get an A, right? And now once I have that, it says put 11.2 into A, and you hit enter. And now it doesn't look like it did anything, but right there it's telling you it did it, right? And then you do the same thing with B and with C. So I do 26.8. And I store that into B, again, alpha, where's B? Right there, up on the apps button. Alpha B, enter. And the same thing with C, 9.1, store, alpha, C, enter. Okay, and there's again our sequence of buttons if you need the sequence of buttons. Okay, so now that I've got those 3 values stored into A, B, and C, you could type in an expression like this, which is the part of the quadratic formula, right? So let's see, to imply the entire numerator, I need a parenthesis, and I do negative, let's see, so I could do alpha B. I need plus square root, so second square root, and let me clear out my key presses so you can see what I'm doing. Negative B plus the square root of, I need B, alpha B, squared, minus 4 alpha A, alpha C, close the parenthesis for the root, close the other parenthesis for the numerator, and then divide by, now here's where we got to be careful. I want to say divide by 2A, right? That's 2 things living down there. Your calculator won't interpret all 2 of them as being down there unless you put parentheses around. So divide by 2 alpha A, and close the parenthesis. And now I can hit enter. And what it does now is it remembers that A, B, and C had numbers that you stored in, so it calculates the value of that thing using those A, B, and C's, and that's exactly what we have here, our answer right there. Now you can do the exact same thing here, and you don't have to retype everything in. You don't have to retype all of these letters in. There's actually a sneaky way to recall exactly what you typed in on this line right here, and it's the entry button right here above enter, right? See that blue word entry? If you call that, if you hit second entry, it retypes in all the stuff you just had in the previous line, right? And you might not think this is useful, but notice in the next part right here, it wants you to do the same exact thing, the other part of the quadratic formula, but with a subtraction. So when you recall what you entered in the previous line, you can now modify this line, right? You can hit up. You can hit up, and then instead of an addition, you can make it a subtraction. Okay, and now all I had to do was push 2 buttons instead of typing in all that stuff again, and just hit enter. And now you get the other answer, okay? The negative version, the minus version of the quadratic formula, right? Excellent. So that's finished. That's all of page 2. If you'd like the other pages, continue on to the other videos.